little bit. Very good. And who knows, they've already got a question they want to ask. Okay, fine. Okay, well, start thinking because the pressure is on. Not really, but okay. So please join me again in welcoming to the stage with me the director Bronagh Lagan, Miriam Grace Edwards, and Sam Jenkins-Shaw. Thanks. I don't think I'm giving too much away, by the way, to say I'm the only American on the stage. There are Americans in the audience, right? But Bronagh is Northern Irish. Yeah. And Miriam and Sam, are you both British?
Welsh.
Yeah. Okay, well that kind of counts, right? Welsh, British. You're both Welsh. Yeah. You're both Welsh. Wow. Okay, fantastic. So I
only work with Celts.
I have to say that even as an American, I obviously knew who Mary Lincoln was, but knew very little about her before preparing for this tonight, and I had never heard of Matthew Brady. So I just want to say thanks to begin with, because they are two such fascinating historical figures, as well as some of the other figures that appear in the play. Before we talk specifically about that though, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot to discuss with the people, the real people behind this work, I want to talk about the work itself. This is a new play. It's written by an American multidisciplinary artist, which means he's a painter, he's a historian, he does all sorts of sculptor, all sorts of things, named John Ransom Phillips. He'd been working on the play for many years. He first premiered it, I believe, at the Edinburgh Festival a couple of years ago, and this is its first big run. So quite unusual to have an American play about American historical figures to premiere here in London. And he's really fascinating, by the way. He also is another fascinating person. And if you haven't yet, audience, got the program, I encourage you to do so, because he's got a really great program feature in here talking about the inspiration for the play. But just for the benefit of the audience, Bronagh, tell us a little bit about why...
how did he come to write it?
Yeah, how did he come to write it? And how involved has he been in this run here at Charing Cross?
Sure, so yeah, you're absolutely right. He's like multidisciplinary artist, and he does a lot of painting and sculptures, and at the time he was actually going through a period of studying each American president, and he would spend a week looking at the research, and then would try and control his dreams to try and think of what he could paint based on the information he learned about those artists. And he actually began to write a story about Matthew Brady, and in the study of that, because of what he had done to create Lincoln, he said that he had a dream where Mary Lincoln appeared to him and was tell my story. So he flipped kind of the narrative of that and went to tell her story as much as he could. It's a piece of obviously historical fiction, and yeah, that's how the piece came to be. And his involvement, he has been in America during our rehearsal process, but I as you know, I work a lot in new writing. It's something I'm very passionate about, and what was lovely working with John on the piece is between the three of us and also Sam, Rena, the associate, we really started picking the piece apart and offered suggestions on how we could develop it. So even though it was only a 3-week rehearsal process, it was kind of workshopping the piece into existence. So yeah, we kind of communicated through Zoom and the like to workshop it and develop it from what we first had.
And then did John come over for the opening?
He came for press night, yes. A bit late for notes, but he seemed happy enough with it.
I love also in the note in the program, he talks a lot about spiritualism as well, and the energy of Mary Lincoln, and that perhaps she might be also watching the show. Have you ever felt that she's watching the show, Miriam?
I mean, I'm sure she is, but the thing is, I suppose when I'm doing the show, it's really hard to. She's living in me. That's the right answer, isn't it? She's in me, and she's seeing the world through my eyes.
Indeed, that's a very good answer. So, how much did you know, Miriam, about Mary Lincoln before taking on Mrs. President?
I knew absolutely nothing about Mary Lincoln. Obviously, I knew about Abraham Lincoln, but I didn't know too much about her. And when this job came through, I was immediately okay, who is this person? And it blew my mind. I don't think I've ever come across anyone who had such a, I mean, her life was just so traumatic and devastatingly sad. To lose a mother at the age of 7, and then to her father very quickly remarried. There were 15 of them, and her stepmother was really cruel. So there was just no love there. And I, not to kind of be too much of a psychologist about it, but what I found out about her later on in life is that she had this love of overspending. She'd spend all of this money on clothes and finery, and I kind of look back at her childhood and I go, oh, you know, like never being one of 15 with a mother or a stepmother that's very cruel and like wanting to have attention, wanting to have love, and you've got this public that hates you. How do I make you love me? Well, you know, can I dress up for you? Can I, you know, like, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm dribbling.
So she craved love, and I think that definitely comes across. And the overwhelming grief and loss is communicated so well by your performance and in the script. But as you say, so much trauma. So as we see in the play, you know, she had 4 children. 3 of them died. The one who survived had her committed to an asylum. Her adored husband assassinated next to her as they're holding
like
hands.
This close.
Yeah. I mean, just horrific.
Yeah.
And that the grief seems to be at that time when women, as we see, were not considered full people.
Yeah.
Is like a form of mental illness. It comes
Absolutely. I mean, it's a tale as old as time, isn't it? But she wasn't allowed to show her grief, and no woman was really in public, and the fact that she wasn't able to control it, which I think is fair enough. But she openly expressed this grief, and people hated her for it. And people said that she was insane. And we kind of look at her now and we go, well, if all of those things that, you know, we know about things like PTSD now. I mean, if you're sat this close to somebody when they're shot, surely that's going to be taken into consideration. But back then it was just, no, you're insane, we're going to lock you up.
And then Sam, with Matthew Brady, again, just a fascinating individual. And there's so many things that come across in your portrayal of him in terms of like sort of the morality of art and his methods and how he sees the world. It's so much, but tell us a little bit more about the man himself and what fascinates you about him.
I didn't know anything about him before I got the gig, but we don't know when he was born. He was born sometime, I think, in 1823 or 1824 in upstate New York to Irish immigrant parents, and he started to lose his sight from about the age of 10, and then he fast forward, he did an apprentice with Samuel Morse, who's the guy who invented Morse code, but was also a photographer, and spent a lot of time in Europe, like perfecting his craft, and then became a big name in America, taking all these celebrity photographs. I think he photographed 18 of the 19 presidents who were alive during his life, as well as, you know, Walt Whitman and the famous people behind me, and, you know, Queen Victoria's son and lots of people. And then he went on this project. He spent $100,000 in old money to go and photograph the war, or rather he had a team of about 25 people who went around and photographed the Civil War.
And he funded that himself?
He funded that himself from his studio profits, and he bankrupted himself after that, because he thought he would be able to sell the collection to Congress. He did in the end only for about $25,000, so, you know, the loss was, so he was bankrupt, and he died penniless, having been this major celebrity at the forefront of I guess a new art form, I guess, kind of the first photojournalist maybe, but there's not a whole deal known about his actual life. We know about his work, and there's some nice quotes that people said about him and things like that. He wasn't really concerned with religion and this kind of, he was very much, I think, sort of at the forefront of what he was trying to do. But yeah, a complex guy.
I mean, the Civil War photography in particular was so graphic. I mean, you know, obviously with the photography of the day, he's not in the battle, in the heat of the battle, but he's photographing the corpses afterwards, and as you say in the play, you know, arranging them for aesthetic purposes, I suppose. They're so graphic. If you guys do a Google image search, you will actually find that they still are mainly blanked out. You know, they have sensitivity warnings on them, so you have to agree to see them because they're so graphic.
But I think the other thing is he wasn't on the front line, but he did go and live in the camps with the generals and stuff, and General Grant, and was there. So yes, he wasn't in the heat of battle, but there were times when he was there when the wounded were coming in immediately. And the other thing I think that's really key is that he didn't take all the photographs, right? There was a team of 25 men who went with him. So the photographs that you see of these soldiers are not, though they will say Brady, they won't have necessarily been taken by him. It's just his business behind them, which I just think is an interesting thing. He really was concerned about, you know, he had a wife and child to support as well.
Yeah.
And I think at the start of the play, I think we meet him when he's kind of lost. He's lost all that money because, you know, because of the timeline of the piece. So I think when Mary says to him, you know, I really need this, and he says, yeah, I need this too. Yeah. I think that's our starting point to go. We have to try and create something. He's desperate to create the perfect photograph of her.
Yeah. Okay, audience, this is your one question warning. So I'm coming to you next. But Bronagh, let me turn back to you. So you've got these two fascinating figures that you're portraying. You've got a lot of non-linear activity going on in this script. Lots of things that, you know, it seems to me we're to question, are these real things, are they imagined? And you've got this beautiful production that you've put together to convey it. Tell us a little bit about how you put this together, particularly set, costume design, lighting. Gregor Donnelly, the designer, amazing work. Tell us how you worked with the creative team to bring this out.
I mean, like these guys, like researches everything. So like the first thing I did is I knew that there was a art gallery behind the National Portrait Gallery that had archives of Matthew Brady's work and some photographs of the Lincolns. So I took lots of inspiration from the original photography I'd found. And yeah, the piece is non-linear, and it's, you know, written by an artist who loves abstract quality. And I tried to create something that had a sense of reality of the world, but then also to make it exciting for a contemporary audience. I put on my kind of own ideas of storytelling to make it feel energetic and alive, and it has parallels of like parlor tricks that would have been used at the time, which is how I think he may have manipulated her within those scenes, but then used within the technological advancements we have. And one thing that really struck me is because it was non-linear, and is it in her head, is it him, is it amalgamation of both things? I wanted to have like a portrait, as you can see, like the picture frame around that.
Yes,
to
if you haven't been to this theatre before, this
doesn't
not
exist.
normally here. Yeah.
And that for me was there as a license for the audience to make their own interpretation of the reality of the story and the narrative. And there's like a big battle of the sexes, right? So some of the photographs in Matthew Brady's studio have like the skylight. So his kind of world is the kind of this half of the stage, and it's very like hard edge and like masculine and industrial. And then with Mary Lincoln's world, everything, I wanted to have it more of a feminine quality, so it has that kind of sweeping fabric world, and also plays with her idea of the veil of reality. Yeah. We've got stars on the floor to represent America, and also I wanted it to be a place that was a toy box for Matthew Brady, because he was so inspired by Barnum, so it should feel that it could have tricks happen within it. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of what the set does, I guess.
There's also, with the drapes over here, that I was fixated on the lighting when they became American flags. It was, I mean, just beautiful.
The AV that Matt's created, yeah.
Wow.
So we've done so he's taken, I mean, it's all different storytelling, I guess, but his brief from me was, maybe other than the American flag actually, try and make it feel like it could be something that is shadow play within the Victorian era, I guess. I don't know if everyone saw, but when Mary's speaking to her son, there's like a silhouette of like Willie that is kind of on some of the curtains that some people can see and some people can't. She had no idea. Great. And it kind of like runs past, and we have like the shadow of Lincoln's silhouette on the floor, but kind of like parlor tricks in that sense. And anything that's more literal in its design Matt was given a brief of like make it feel like the paintings of the times. It has a kind of watercolor feel to it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Also, by the way, the Audubon scene when we have a bit of that with the birds and the lighting of the birds, and again another
Are there birds on it? I don't know.
No, there are. Yeah, there are
Like
birds.
Hitchcock.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's very Hitchcockian, but and also another fascinating historical figure. That guy, right? Okay, who's got some hands up? Come on, here we go. Yep, second row.
My question is, was it in your interpretation as to how many times Brady or Mrs. Lincoln sat with Brady? Was it once or twice? And is that when I get the way the play set around that? But I would imagine that photographer would just do one sitting or two sittings with somebody of that fame.
Yeah. Do you know how many sittings they actually had? Anyone?
It was multiple.
Yeah, but I think within the script, we looked at the idea of what if this is all happening in a moment? What if the manipulation is happening to her? So almost the beginning of the play and the end of the play could be, and it's open to interpretation, but could be the same moment with this kind of almost fever dream in the middle. So it's slightly, it's not historically.
I think historically there was about 5 or 6 times, sometimes with Lincoln, but there are there's definitely 3 or 4 portraits of her where she came on her own and sat there. Yeah.
And what would a sitting have been like at that time? I mean, the camera speeds, are not what they are today that we have on our iPhones, right? So
no, about 15 minutes of sitting
for one shot.
For one shot, but what he would do is create a whole experience in New York and Washington where you would be led through rooms and rooms of photographs. The wall would be lined with photographs, and you wouldn't meet Brady potentially, or if you were very, very important, you would. But you would meet all his helpers, and they would guide you through, and they would tell you the history, and then you'd go up, and then you'd have tea, and then you would go in and have the sitting, like it was a sort of experience, like an immersive kind of thing. So, but then you have to sit like a painting, but obviously for 15 minutes instead of 15 hours or whatever.
And do you have any idea how much you charge for this?
I have no idea.
$49.99.
$49.99. I will get them free on Tuesdays.
Yeah, 2-for-1 deals. Right. Okay. Were there other hands? Other hands? Yes, here.
So I'm very surprised that this is actually the second play I've seen this year about Mary Todd Lincoln.
Oh, did you see on Broadway?
Oh, Mary, yeah. So do you have any thoughts about that play or any way in which this play and that play are to dialogue with each other?
Yeah, so this is a play that's currently running on Broadway now, I think by Carla Escola, something like that, called Oh Mary. Do you know, have you seen it, Bronagh? Do you know anything about it?
I have heard about it, but I've not seen it,
No, but I imagine, I would think in some ways, whilst you're involved in a project about something, you don't want to see somebody else's take on it. What do you think?
Yeah, well, we're still waiting for the tickets to New York so that we can go and see it. But we can't wait for that. but no, I think from what I understand, is that focusing on maybe her drinking.
It's a broad farce, and it's very much about her drinking and his possible homosexuality.
Right. Yeah. So it's and I suppose but I think there are so many different stories that you could look at within this one woman's life that sometimes to do too many is, I mean, even in this show we kind of touch on quite a few moments very briefly, but I think whereas that one's just gone, right, this one subject, let's just look at that. Yeah. But I mean, who knows, there might be another 5 plays.
But I think, as those in the audience who are British musical theatre fans will know the success of Six, the musical about the wives of Henry VIII, and there is something that's definitely interesting, I believe, for theatre makers at looking at little-known figures, especially female figures, who are overshadowed by the men in their lives, and kind of rediscovering and letting them tell their own stories.
Yeah.
Hearing Mary's story. Would you agree, Bronagh?
Yeah, I mean, I think historical fiction is very in fashion at the moment, and you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of that is focusing, rightfully, on underrepresented characters, particularly women, and it's because so much of history is not written by women, so therefore they not often exist in it. So the historical fiction is something that is people, thankfully, I think have an appetite for.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, hand in the back. Oh, now all the hands coming up. Great. Okay, yes, you?
Yeah, hi. I really appreciated the contrast of Mary being so preoccupied with loss and Matthew being so preoccupied with having things last, and kind of the opposite, Brady. But also I was intrigued by the character of Brady. It's about Mary, but it's also very much about the photographer and his megalomania, really, of what he can do, the magic he can do, how in a way she kept saying, see me, and you kept saying, I'll do what I want, I'll see you however I see you. And of course, representing how a woman was seen at that time, but also how the artist sees beyond what is, and what is projected, and what is fantasy, and what is realistic, which is very interesting for photography, because at that time, photography was supposed to be the realistic art as opposed to painting. And John is both a painter and a writer. I'm a friend of John.
Oh, okay. This is the playwright, by the way.
But I was wondering how you felt playing this photographer who has these various selves, mirroring in a way the selves of Mary, but Mary was more consistent in trying to be seen, whereas you had these many selves and even said so, and were a little sadistic at times.
Yes.
I think John gave us a book of his paintings, right, at the press night, and it's incredible that he likes to, as Bronagh alluded to, try and go in the mind of his subjects, right? John, the writer and who is a painter, likes to do that, and I think by creating this play, he wanted to try and have a bit of a, theatrical device where the actor playing Brady has to create these characters, out of nothing as well, and just use, physicality and voice and stuff to create these people, just to get across the idea that it's Brady's imagination that creates the subjects, that creates the theme and the vibe of the photo that he's creating, because he was half blind, right? So I think John is kind of preoccupied with that, of that going, how does an artist who is a visual artist create something when they can't see very well?
Yeah.
So I think the creating all the characters is great, because it just gives you a chance to delve into that a bit, and it just goes a bit, I don't know, I'm drawn to those things where it's a little bit meta, it's a bit theatrical, it's a bit, I don't know, what's the phrase, out of the box, I don't know. Yeah.
I kept thinking about Beethoven as well. I can't imagine, yes, as you both have said, like a photographer who is partially blind, and a composer who goes deaf and yet still creates.
Yeah.
Can still find that incredible inspiration and talent. It's amazing. Thank you. Yes, just in front. Yep. And is it orange? I'm not sure.
Hi. I'm currently studying acting in school, and Brady, I'm wondering, what was your process in creating the persona or the wants and needs of this character that is in a piece that is historical fiction, that is maybe not as well known as other figures in history? What was your process in creating this character?
Can we extend that to both of them? So
yes.
So Sam, speak about how you connected with Brady, and then we'll hear from.
Okay. Read a lot about him and watched some documentaries and try to see what he was like. Then throw that away and go to the play and go, what's he trying to do to Mary in every scene? What does he actually want in every scene? He wants, and his overall thing is to create the perfect photo, because he's poor now. So his drive is to create this perfect photo. So I don't know about process, but I don't know. It's so hard to talk about this, isn't it? Read everything and then throw it away, and then try and find something that you can hinge on. What is he trying to do? That's what I do. I don't know. And then walk around South London parks with my headphones on, reciting the words all the time over to myself, and then go in the room and then listen to Miriam and then see what she does, and then go, oh, she's done that, and then I'll do this, and play, basically. Yeah. I don't know. I find it ephemeral to talk about the process, because it kind of, I don't know. I just
comes instinctively, I guess. Yeah.
No, I understand.
Thank you. And Miriam.
I the way that I love to work is by playing and getting things really wrong. Having like a rehearsal room like Bronagh set up to make an offer and it might not be right, and then you go back and you try something else. Something that I've found really useful, especially for a character like this, is to try and create the memories. So memories that she might have had with Willie or with Mr. Lincoln. So when she's thinking about him or when she's saying certain things in the script, she can remember a time that they had together, or and kind of like almost like make little mini short films, or not short films, but like moments that you can play in your head that make you remember something, that then make you connect to what you're saying. That's the fun bit for me, is going all the way back to the beginning of a character's life and then making it a little film that you can look back on and then bring it into rehearsals and play.
It's interesting too in terms of the pace of the piece, because we have several interludes where you are on the stage alone, and monologues as such, and then others obviously where you're interacting. Do you have a preference being on the stage alone? Like, is it different? Not okay. It's not coming across the right way. But thinking about the energy, how does that affect the energy when you're playing opposite Sam?
It's just different. But it's kind of like, it's quite weird because in this she never leaves Matthew Brady's studio, so it's always like his presence is there. So even when it's kind of like when I'm on my own on the stage, I've gone into a memory, but I'm still here and he is still present, and there's something that brings me back out of it. Or yeah, but it's lovely to have Sam on stage.
And Sam, what are you doing backstage?
I have a wee and then go out
Yeah.
and drink water.
Has a cheeky sandwich.
Cheeky sandwich.
Oh.
No, I don't. I get a breather. This one doesn't, and she does very well.
Yeah, very good. Okay, I think we've got time for maybe 2 more questions. Was there another hand? Yes, here.
It's historical fiction, and it's great that you did Brady because he is well known as to the historians as a photographer of the Civil War. But you made reference to a photograph of Mary Lincoln with Lincoln's hands. But
I know what you're going to say.
Took that
It wasn't
photograph.
Brady.
It wasn't Brady.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That was interesting because
So
that
I
was
think-
proven to be a hoax.
Yeah, it's a bit of artistic
Yeah.
license from John. I think.
Yeah. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
So what the gentleman was talking about is the final photo that we create in the play of Lincoln's hands on Mary's shoulders is a famous hoax photograph, but it wasn't done by Brady. It was done by someone called Mulmer, I think, or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So I think that's just a bit of license from John.
Got it.
But did she
Yeah.
think that it was real?
Uh,
Some people
Well,
thought
she
it was
was a
real at the time.
spiritualist, and at the time, like seances and all of that was really popular and really fashionable. And you have the line, don't you? Like, I know that it's become very fashionable to people's grief. I don't know, it's your line, but
sorrow and grief.
but it's so interesting. Of even then, people were able to make money out of things like grief and loss.
Yeah.
And like we look at certain industries now and how it manipulates certain things, and the media and photography, the role that plays now is actually it's almost the birth of that, isn't it? This time,
Yeah.
very interesting.
I usually like to finish with the one kind of silly question that everybody has to answer. I'm going to give you a heads up so you can think about it, and then I have a penultimate question for Bronagh. But the final question will be, you have your choice. So it's either inspired by the camera and the chair. If you had to come back as an inanimate object, what would it be? or inspired by a line in the play, what's the perfect thought to have while you're having your photo taken? But meanwhile, Bronagh, this play is obviously set in a very different time, but why do you think it resonates today? What do you want audiences today to take away from it?
I mean, when the play was first coming together, we didn't know what president would be elected in America, and that is something we all collectively wanted a different outcome for that. And when Trump was elected, we were thought, what does the piece mean now? And actually, tragically so, the piece really highlights the fragility of women's rights at that time and currently today. So something that I want this to be a piece that people are actively talking about. Women's rights, what can we do for that? How can we help that? And I hope that that's something that we have respected and tried to put at the forefront. It is devastating that this was written or set like over 200 years ago, and these things are at stake right now. It's that's a very sad way to end it, but power of art, I guess.
It is, and that comes across very forcefully. Another connection with this last presidential election, though, that occurred to me as I watched the play was the power of a single photograph. So there is the line in the play, and it was a very famous photo that Brady took of Lincoln that he did credit with winning him the election because of the image it portrayed. And even in this day where we've all got amazing cameras in our pocket and so many photos, we know that there was an incredibly powerful image, a photograph taken of Trump when he was shot at, that some credit with turning the tide of that campaign in his favor. So again, with all the changes of photography, there's still something incredibly powerful about the artist here says that something is captured in an iconic image that does last and change history. Okay, so the silly one we're going to end on a lighter note.
No idea.
What would you come back as? The camera, the chair, something else?
Oh, between the camera and the chair.
Or
That's
something
good.
else?
No, let's do that.
Okay, right. Are your voices the cameras in the chair? The camera?
Yes.
Yeah, that is you
Yeah.
guys.
I reckon I would come back as the chair.
Yes.
Well, I'll come back as the camera then, right?
Just one for the people.
A Scouse camera.
Because, because chairs have been around for longer than cameras. They've led multiple lives, so it's come from a tree, as she said. So for hundreds of years, the chair has been something else, seen all kinds of things over centuries, and then now it holds people, and the conversations that happen on chairs, and just being a kind of fly on the wall in a room, a chair. I think the cameras are just in where cameras are, but chairs are everywhere.
Nice. Well, this is a very nice chair, by the way. And Sam,
I
why
agree with everything Miriam said. I'll be a chair.
Okay. I'll sit on either of you. It's fine. And what about you, Bronagh?
Chair.
Okay, we're chairs all around. Okay, so finally, audience, thank you for staying. You've been a great audience. You are now champions for this production, which continues here at the Charing Cross Theatre until the 16th of March. So please grab flyers, post on social media, stop people in the street, come back, bring your friends. And after we give these guys a clap, we're going to budge up and do a group shot. So all of you who do have the powerful cameras in your pocket, get your cameras out, take a photo, share it. And meanwhile, please join me in thanking Sam and Miriam and Bronagh. And Mary.